Hi, you've clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Saturday. This is probably going to be my last video for at least a little while. I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go up to Fairbanks where I'm going to attend college, and I really have no idea what life is going to be like up there, so I can't make any promises about being able to resume these updates every morning while I'm up there. I sure hope to find time to do one every morning, at least a short one, but I have no idea how things are going to turn out, so I can't guarantee it. I could be back on duty in just a few days, or it could be an even longer time period than that before I'm able to do these again. So if I'm not able to do these, I want to thank everyone who has watched them, everyone who's read my blog and commented there. You guys are awesome. If I don't come back, I hope and pray that all of you get through this hurricane season safely. So let's get into today's action over here. This is first of all the frontal trough that's still sitting in the Gulf of Mexico. Still, every morning I look at this and see the same thing, but this morning little interesting things happening. A little bit of a swirl developed along the Louisiana coast. It looks like the second center became dominant over this one. Interesting how it's sort of fizzling down here, and now instead of a batch of heavy rain moving into Texas like the models were showing, we sort of got this little feature trying to swirl around in here, and we got most of the heavy rain is coming to the North Gulf Coast now, and Texas isn't getting so much. In fact, they're fairly dry right now, so it'll be interesting to see if they do get any significant rainfall, but still not seeing too much out of this. The swirl is nice and interesting over here, but it'll probably move over land before it has a chance to feed back in way too much dry air to its northwest over here to really allow convection to wrap around and feed back significantly. And over here we got our wave train, hurricane train, whatever we want to call it, coming off the African coast. Over here we can see Danielle, and she's recurving now east of Bermuda. Thankfully it doesn't look like they'll get too much significant weather from her. She's been trying to undergo an eyewall replacement cycle all night long, and if she does pull it off, well, it's a bad time to do it because she's starting to get recurved now. You can see that she's starting to become lopsided to the east as the trough that recurves her is starting to shear her from the southwest. So the eye is starting to be placed on the western side of the system, and she'll continue off to the northeast and weaken. She's now a Cat 2. She made it all the way up to a solid Cat 4, which was impressive. She really helped boost the ACE index for the Atlantic so far this year, and she's now going out and will slowly weaken into an extratropical cyclone, and the story is basically finished with her. This is Earl back here, Tropical Storm Earl, strengthening now to 60 miles per hour. We can see a well-defined circulation starting to develop with him over here. Thunderstorm activity still off to the south of the center because Danielle's impressive outflow is shearing him from the north over here. As she lifts out, this will become less of a problem. Dry air will start to become less of a problem, and just like Danielle, remember Danielle looked pretty sickly in this area of the Atlantic, but once she got farther west, she started blowing up and became a big major hurricane. This is the same thing that should happen with Earl. As he comes across, expect him to strengthen. The northern islands should watch to see if they get affected by this a little bit, at least scraping the southern side of Earl, and he'll be coming in this area and could wind up into a pretty powerful storm coming up into this area. I still feel that he's most likely to recurve out east of the United States ultimately, but probably between Cape Hatteras and Bermuda. Classic track over here. Both areas, Bermuda and Cape Hatteras, should watch to see if the track deviates enough to affect either of them, especially if he becomes a large storm that could become a problem. So we'll see how this goes. There'll be some close calls with Earl. If he gets close enough, there'll be some whaling along the eastern seaboard, seeing if he's going to try to come ashore. I think ultimately he'll recurve, but it should be watched just in case. This is what should become Fiona back here. Not a tropical depression yet, but well-defined circulation developing, just some more organized, heavier convection, and they would probably classify this, again, dry Saharan air getting wrapped into the circulation, but again, as she comes farther west, just like Danielle and Earl, she will start to become better organized, and she could take the farthest southern track of the three and have a better chance of impacting the northern islands over here. Looking at the GFS, this is the day 7 from the 6C run. You can see Earl recurving over here east of Hatteras, and what this is over here is this is Fiona getting entrained to do circulation, getting absorbed, and this is a solution that GFS has been showing for days now, and it's complete crud because it's not going to happen. I can 99% guarantee that. For one thing, Fiona, there's nice distance. You gotta understand something, that hurricanes have a certain respect for each other's personal space. Not that they can actually have respect in a literal sense, but they really do. The outflow, you can see right now the outflow from Danielle and the Earl. I mean, she's shearing Earl, but there's a certain boundary that hurricanes can't cross when getting too close to each other, and sometimes you have two storms doing the Fujiwara effect. But when you have trains coming off, the GFS may struggle with storms in close proximity in the Atlantic, but the trains generally have a decent reputation of keeping a good space between cars back here. So I don't expect this distance between these two storms to close significantly too much, and they're not going to merge. This won't happen. Fiona will be back here coming in behind. She's not going to catch up. That's the other thing, is the steering flow isn't going to let her catch up to Earl just like that. She's not moving faster than Earl, and the steering flow isn't going to change that much. Now if we look over here at the European, this is Earl curving out. Over here, here's Fiona coming behind. European has it west of Bermuda this time. Bermuda again will have to watch along with Cape Hatteras to see if they get affected by this. Going out to day 8, here's Fiona coming up. Notice big trough coming down, and we go to day 9. Moving northwest over here, northeast of the Bahamas, we go to day 10, and this is farther east and north than yesterday's runs. Might be a recurving storm missing the U.S. on this particular run. This is bringing tropical storm conditions to Cape Hatteras right here. But this is a pretty powerful hurricane. You can see the ridge building over the top. The biggest difference on this run is this monster trough that was not this strong on yesterday's run. Still encountering resistance from the ridging, which I described yesterday, but this is a big trough, and this is probably the reason why she looks more like a recurving storm here. However, with the trough completely leaving and you get the ridge building in over here, there is concern that if a track like this happened, it could be one of the rarities that try to come back towards the coast, even though it's trying to recurve. What's a little more disconcerting, though, is looking at the ensemble mean. The operational has the storm up here, but the ensemble mean has it back here, still east of Florida. Yes, my cursor is hard to see, I apologize, but you can see where the deepest pinks are and where the isobar is almost closed. That's where the storm is on the ensemble, farther south and more likely to make landfall. This is the 500 millibar pattern. You can see the storm out here, you can see the trough over the west over here, which is trying to pump the heights in here, which is kicking the trough out over here, and this is where you can get a landfall if the storm is sitting down here. You can see where it gets stuck under the ridge and comes into the coast, and this is something we're going to have to be watching for. And you know, could Fiona recurve? It's certainly possible, and it's certainly on the table here, but the overall message of the models is that there's a pattern in place that could allow her to make landfall, and since she is likely to come the farthest west and south of these 3 hurricanes that we're having right now, Danielle, Earl, and Fiona, she's likely to be the farthest west and south. Remember, we had this disagreement within the models for Danielle. We had the European, some of the runs were taking her in here as well, but she was coming up farther north and farther east. If Fiona's coming farther south and farther west, then she has a greater chance to actually pull this solution off, so it's something we need to watch carefully. Couple more models is the Canadian bringing her up the east coast now, mimicking the European fairly closely over the last few runs, and this is something that's coming north-northwest, and you know, Cape Cod might have had to watch this in such a situation, but these things will usually like to turn out rather fast, so even though this looks sort of like a New England hurricane that could be a concern, a lot of the times when the ridge is trying to build, they'll just turn out really fast if they're not going to make landfall down here. So we'll see how that turns out if it happens. Finally, we look at the NOGAPS day 7, and it's interesting because this model has Fiona the farthest south of any of them, just north of Hispaniola over here. You see the trough going by the north, and Earl's recurving out. You can see the axis of the trough is almost directly north of the storm, and if the storm is this far south with the trough axis directly north of it, it's probably not recurving. The trough would lift out, the ridge would build in, and this would probably come up a little bit and then make a landfall somewhere on the southeast U.S. coast. So you can see some of the models hitting at this pattern that could be dangerous. So again, the overall message that I'm trying to convey here is that the pattern that we're going to for the heart of the season favors the troughs lifting out, the ridging building in, and if these storms are coming far enough south and far enough west, they can make landfall on the United States coastline, and this is something we do have to watch very closely. And yes, Fiona has not formed yet, so there are going to be model flops back and forth. The ensembles will show different things than the operational runs and all sorts of stuff, but the point is for everyone to be watching the situation and be ready in case it happens, so that people were warned and you can be prepared. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you for watching.